The Shadows That Haunt Us. Written by Just Thinking Drabbles. Read by Arashi. Ferdinand awoke with a start to the flash of lightning and the boom of thunder. His heartbeat raced as he lay there silently and listened to the heavy rain that pattered against his window pane. It was only a summer shower, he reminded himself. Yet, despite his reassurance, the downpour resurfaced unpleasant memories to his mind. Ones of feeling the steel beneath fingertips, of war cries and weapons clashing, and the faces of fallen friends and foes alike. The battle at the Tailteen Plains was several years ago, but he could not think on them without tears brimming in his eyes. He blinked rapidly to try and chase the memory from his mind. Desperate to find solace in his husband's embrace, he reached his hand towards the other side of the bed. Yet, instead of Hubert, he was met only with their cold, soft mattress. Again. This was not the first time that this had happened, and he knew it wouldn't be the last. He sighed as he pulled himself from the covers and began to stroll to Hubert's office. His darling had nightmares too. He knew, and they dealt with them in vastly different ways. Sadly, Hubert seemed to think that working into all hours of the night was a better solution to the terrors than chasing them away within the haven of their chambers. It was no matter, though. It gave Ferdinand the opportunity to coax him back to bed with soft kisses and tender touches. He rapped on the door to notify Hubert of his presence before carefully stepping inside. As he suspected, his husband was wide awake at his desk, with a quill in hand, a mug of coffee to his right, and his glasses perched upon his nose. Most people would find Hubert's pale skin bathed in the light of a single candle to be frightening, but Ferdinand merely smiled with fondness. His heart always fluttered when he saw him. He approached his desk at a languid pace, stepping with intention in his footfalls. The scratch of Hubert's quill and the clap of the flame upon the waning candle wick filled the silence between them when the thunderstorm didn't. The place smelled of the strongest scents, dark magic and freshly brewed coffee, all of which reminded him of the handsome man seated before him. "Hello, my son," Hubert acknowledged him without looking away from the document he was reviewing. Ferdinand kissed the top of his head in greeting before taking a seat on the edge of his desk. "Hubert, my love, what are you doing here at this late hour?" "I could ask you the same question." "You could, but I asked first." A chuckle that was so undeniably Hubert filled the room as he put down his quill and leaned back in his chair to face Ferdinand. If this was a couple of years ago, it would not be so easy to pull him from his work. But their time together had softened him a bit. There were still moments, of course, where he overworked himself to the point of utter exhaustion, but those had become few and far between. Hubert took his hand and gently stroked the back of it with his thumb. "I was restless, so in order to keep from disturbing you, I came here." Ferdinand tisked. "You would not be disturbing me. You know you can always confide in me when something troubles you." He smiled affectionately and gave his hand a tight squeeze. "I know." It was silent for a moment, and then, "What about you? Were you also having trouble sleeping?" "A little. The storm reminds me of war." As if intending to taunt him, thunder roared and rattled the room, followed swiftly by a flash of lightning that briefly lit the entire room in bright white. Ferdinand jumped at the sudden sound, but tried to brush it off as if it were a shiver. Hubert knew, though. He was too perceptive not to. "Me too." He didn't need to say it, but it was comforting to hear. He did it, to remind his husband that he was safe with him. He brought Hubert's hand to his lips and kissed it gently in thanks. "Shall we go to bed, my moon?" Ferdinand asked with a tilt of his head, his golden eyes pleading. "Of course, sunlight." Together they walked out, hand in hand, to their room, and slipped easily into the warmth of their bed. Though the storm outside still raged, they could not be bothered to care when wrapped tightly in each other's familiar embrace.